Today on Life Mosaic, we're joined by Frank of Old Glory Quilters, part of the Quilts of Valor Foundation. He and his wife Denise are carrying on a powerful mission honoring veterans with handmade quilts of comfort and gratitude. Frank, welcome to the show. Welcome to Life Mosaic. Hi, I'm Wheezy, and I love to share stories that connect the generations, weaving together the threads of life into a beautiful and lasting legacy. This is a space where every moment and memory matters, embracing the joy, the challenges, and everything in between that shapes who we are. Join me as I uncover and celebrate the living legacy that transcends time and space, creating the mosaic of life one story at a time. I am so glad that you are here today with us on Life Mosaic. How's the world treating you these days?
We're doing well. We're staying busy. Obviously, Quilts of Valor activities tend to consume us pretty well. We plan presentations, we find venues, we reach out to nominees to see if they can be available for a certain date.
Yeah,
Um,
well, you just had a big ceremony the other day, and I'm just
yeah.
so glad that I got a chance to actually witness. These people are going to go, "What's Quilts of Valor?" We're going to tell you about Quilts of Valor in just a few minutes, but we're going to chit chat here for just a minute. And I went to a ceremony on Sunday, and I can tell you, Frank, I was blown away. I did not expect to get so emotional. I had a tissue and I dabbed a lot of tears just watching that ceremony. It was
Uh,
very
ho-
awesome.
Hopefully, they were happy tears, right?
They
Just to see what's
were,
going
they
on.
were. I get a little emotional at happy moments, so.
Yeah.
but
Well, the presentations we hold, we try to keep the number around a dozen, maybe no more than 14 or 15, because when you have too many veterans there being awarded, it almost becomes like a little mass production, and you're trying to
mhm.
get through it all. It starts getting too long, and the veterans get restless sitting and waiting. The audience gets restless after a while. So we found that limiting the number makes it go smoother and more meaningful. And there's almost like a maybe a little closer camaraderie amongst the veterans, you know.
Yeah. Well, you
And,
presented to 12 and 7 of them got a special pin.
yes,
Can you tell us what their pin was
yeah.
for?
So that pin is for any veteran that had a uniform on anytime between November 1, 1955 and May 15, 1975 is generally considered to be the Vietnam War era.
Okay.
And as you might remember, servicemen during the Vietnam era, when they were coming home from duty and all, they were very much unappreciated, denigrated, even to the length of being spit upon on the streets and in the airport terminals when they were returning. It was just a dark time. The sentiment against the military, the government, and all was terrible. And there was no appreciation for the veteran service, unlike coming home from World War II or even veterans coming back
Mhm.
from Korea. They were
Yeah.
celebrated and thanked. And so Congress and the president, kind of looking back on that, decided that for the period of up to the 50th anniversary of the end of Vietnam, think of that 50 years ago already,
I
um,
know.
that they commissioned production of a special commemoration lapel pin for Vietnam era veterans. And it's a small pin, but it's intricately detailed. And its symbolism is a measure of wanting to express gratitude to those veterans that served in that time, looking backward and saying, it's about time we thanked you and welcomed you home by presenting you something special.
Yeah.
And so that program actually, because the 50th anniversary ends this year, they've already stopped production of pins. And so we only have what we have in stock to be able to continue giving those. And the program officially ends, I believe it is November 1st of 2025. So,
Okay.
after that, if we have any left, we're not supposed to continue to give them out, but
Might
something
just
what
slip a couple
somebody
in.
doesn't know,
Who's
especially if
watching,
somebody
right?
some Vietnam veteran gets awarded a quilt said, "Geez, my buddy got one a while back, and he got a neat pin with it, So,
Yeah.
but once you're out of stock on pins and not making any more, it's you're going to have to be explained that sorry, the program is done, you
Yeah.
know.
Um,
But it is just another special memento, a special gratitude display from us, from the country.
yeah.
So
So before we move on and start explaining what Quilts of Valor really is, more about the program, let's learn a little bit about more about you. What branch of the service you were in the service,
I,
and
I
what
was
branch did you serve in?
I was in the United States Army. I was in ROTC during college. In the year I graduated college, Vietnam was winding down. And at that time, they had more than a surplus of prospective second lieutenants coming out of ROTC programs and servicemen coming back from Vietnam. And so they amped up the active duty for training program as a reservist. And so I went to Fort Benning in April to August of 74, did my infantry officer basic, got commissioned second lieutenant, and then made my way into an Army Reserve unit. And I was in a reserve unit active for a couple of years. And then we moved to Tennessee. And in Tennessee, let me back up a bit. In Massachusetts, we struggled to keep 35% capacity staffing. In Tennessee, they were operating at about 110%
Oh,
because
wow.
Tennessee in the South, I think more patriotism, more eagerness for a second income. So
Hmm.
there was no billets available for me once we moved. And so I got put into the inactive reserves. And I was called up a couple of times for a couple of weeks for the active duty for summer camps. And
Okay.
so I spent a couple weeks at Fort Drum, New York, a couple weeks at Fort Devens, Massachusetts, a couple weeks at Fort Dix, New Jersey. And across that time, I didn't accrue enough points for promotion to captain. And so when my time after my 8 year commitment in the reserves ended and I got passed over for captain because of lack of points, I got my honorable discharge. And
Okay.
you look back at it now, you say, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Should I have been more diligent in trying to work towards points and
Yeah.
continue a career in the reserves? But it is what it is. It was what it was. And
Yeah. Well,
so,
I can tell you because my son signed up for the Army when he lived in Tennessee. And then when he got out, he did look at the reserves for Army and Air Force. And still, as of 5 years ago, still, it's still hard to get into the reserves in
mm,
Tennessee.
mm.
They really are service oriented.
And I'm not just sure at Tennessee. I think generally maybe in the South, Southeast.
Yeah.
I think even reserve and National Guard units in South Carolina, I think are pretty
Good.
well staffed
Yeah.
with reservists and
I believe
guardsmen.
so. I believe so. So you left the army and you went on, and you said you lived in Tennessee. How long were you in Tennessee before you came to South Carolina?
Well, we started out in Massachusetts. We lived in Massachusetts until 1976, and a job opportunity took us to the Knoxville, Tennessee area. And that job sort of came and went. And after that job went, I traveled for a period of time doing work at different locations, but not long term enough to relocate. And we got a longer term job in 1990 that moved us to the Augusta, Georgia area. And we were there. Let's see, I was there in 95. That job kind of ended. I started traveling again for a number of years. And my wife, Denise, stayed in Augusta. And our son finished high school in Augusta, and our daughter finished high school in Augusta. And after the kids were out of the house and on to college and other things, I happened to be in Charlotte at the time, and I was going home to Augusta one weekend, and Denise was traveling up to Charlotte another
Mm-hmm.
weekend, and we said, "This is kind of dumb. Why don't we just sell Augusta and move up here?" Because in Charlotte area was portending to be a fairly long-term assignment, and so we moved here in 2003, and we're still here.
Yeah.
Finished out my career here with retiring in 2018, almost 7 years ago, October of 2018. It's going to be 7 years already. And time never moved faster since after you retired.
Well,
Um, it's,
yeah, I can relate to
yeah,
that.
but
uh,
everything we find, once you retire, Denise had been in Quilts of Valor since 2015 in the local group. And after I retired, come for presentations and things, I got a little bit more active in participating and
okay,
all.
so let's pause there and let me rephrase the question. I want to go back and do the history first and then talk about your and Denise's how you got
Mhm.
involved, okay?
Mhm. Okay, sure.
Frank, we're here today to talk about Quilts of Valor It's a foundation?
It's generally called Quilts of Valor, but the official name is Quilts of Valor Foundation,
Okay.
as a registered 501(c)(3) nonprofit.
Okay, so
So
I'm gonna go
just
back and
cool.
rephrase my
Yeah,
question and make sure that I have it. I just wanted to make sure I had it right.
got it.
So, Frank, we're here today to talk about the Quilts of Valor Foundation. Can you tell us how it a little bit of the can you tell us a little bit of the history behind how Quilts of Valor got started?
Sure, I can. Quilts of Valor started in 2003. It was started by a quilter named Catherine Roberts. Catherine had a son who was deployed to Iraq, and she was, like any parent, always worried about his safety and well-being. And Quilts of Valor really started as a dream. Catherine one night dreamt that her son was sitting at the edge of his bunk, and he seemed sad and lonely and desolate, and she visioned surrounded by war demons. And as her dream continued in the next sequence, she saw her son again sitting at the edge of his bunk, and he was wrapped in a quilt, and he seemed at ease and content and relaxed. And she woke from that dream and thought, wow, quilts equals healing. What a simple model
Mm,
to bring forward to provide comfort and healing to service members and veterans. And so she set about to making a quilt she was going to send to Iraq to her son, but logistics of sending it there was just too much. And so she got permission to bring her quilt to Walter Reed Army Hospital, got permission to present it to a wounded service member who's in the hospital. And it was received with such gratitude and emotion that she knew more had to be done. And so she got together with some of her quilting friends, and they started making quilts to present to veterans and service members. And in that first year, they made about 100 quilts and presented
wow.
them. But she had this vision of this has to be more than this. And it just evolved from there that she established the foundation as a nonprofit. And even though it's not still well advertised, the word spread on it. And it grew over the 22 years that it's been in existence. And there's something in the order of 10,000 members in about 600 or 700 groups in all 50 states around all around the country. Some areas more active than others, but in the 22 years since it's been going, Quilts of Valor in all has awarded almost 420,000 quilts.
Wow. That
So
is huge.
it's huge, but when you think about how many veterans there are and service
True.
members there are,
It's like
it's a
nothing.
long ways to go.
Yeah.
And so that's how Quilt of Valor got going, and that's where it is today. And we are one group of those 600 to 700 around the country.
Yeah.
Um,
So before we get into talking about your current activity with the group and everything, How did you and Denise become involved with Quilts of Valor?
She and a couple of friends started going to church to the Family Life Center. They set up to go Tuesday evenings and just work together on sewing. One of the ladies was a member of the local group for Quilts of Valor, and they just started working on patriotic quilts to contribute to the group. And that was, I think, back in about 2015.
Okay.
And so by that association, Denise joined the group um, and became an active member. And I was still working, but my interest kind of swayed that way just because of the thoughts of being able to recognize and honor veterans and service members for their service to our country. There's so many that did so much more than I did in the military that you got just have feel a way of wanting to reach out and say thank you so much. And so we kind of got involved that way. And the local group is called Old Glory Quilters. It's actually a designated number. We're no group number 13471 in the big Quilts of Valor Foundation empire. And we've covered York County, Chester County, Lancaster County, and recently been asked to reach into Cherokee County, which is a bit of a desert because there's groups upstate, there's a group in the Greenville, Spartanburg area, but Gaffney, Blacksburg area is
Kind of
more
left
than an
out.
arm's length from everybody. We might be the closest, so we offered to work with that group as veterans become nominated from that area.
Oh, nice, nice.
So,
So when did so when did you start? How did you? So we've kind of talked about how Denise got involved. How did you get
yeah.
involved?
Just by the group holding presentations, and Denise would go to the presentations to help wrap veterans the way you saw Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just, rather than sit home and do other things, I said, well, yeah, I'll go along and I can help and help set up and help take down
Yeah.
and help usher people in and seat them and just by the way kind of things. And that just it was interesting enough to me to continue doing that even while I was working. And then I think after I retired, I was able to get a little bit more active because I didn't have work things to have to worry about playing catch up on the weekend and things like
Right,
that.
right. There was somebody before you. Um, I've had his name come up a lot in conversation and
Yeah, so maybe that's a
evolved.
good place to talk about how Old Glory Quilters got started.
Yeah. So you just started by just attending. Was there but how did the Old Glory Quilters really get really into
Okay.
it and get started?
Yeah, so that story goes back to late 2011, early 2012. In 2011, there was a big quilt show in Columbia. And as part of the quilt show, the state coordinator, South Carolina state coordinator at the time, had a Quilts of Valor station set up for display. And along with that, they did a couple of Quilts of Valor award at the show. Harvey and Lynn Mayhill and Lynn's sister, Deb Sheets, traveled down to Columbia to visit the quilt show because Lynn and Deb were interested in it. They were I don't know about avid quilters, but they were interested in quilting just kind of from their mother and aunts and stuff. I think just
Mm-hmm.
doing quilts and yeah, so they traveled down to Columbia and they walking around looking at all the quilts on display, and they came to the Quilts of Valor display. And Harvey was an Air Force veteran in the early to mid 60s. And he always had this streak of patriotism. And that really caught his eye. And he stayed there. He talked with the state coordinator at length while Deb and Lynn walked around and visited most of the rest of the show and came back and found Harvey still at the Quilts of Valor station. And Harvey started expounding on how fantastic it seemed and what a neat thing it was. And They stayed long enough to watch two veterans be awarded Quilts of Valor to quilt. And from then on, Harvey and Lynn said, "We've got to do something like this. This is fantastic." And so they worked with a state coordinator to be able to establish Old Glory Quilters in Rock Hill. And that was kind of really didn't gel until early to mid 2012. And so from 2012 on, they started the ball rolling on establishing a group, getting members involved in a group to start. I think at first they were also part of the York County Quilters Guild. And so that connection to Quilters Guild members brought them a connection to say, hey, you like quilting, you want to quilt patriotic quilts for Quilts of Valor. And so they grew a group maybe to about 30 people or so. Some more active than others. Some loved coming to meetings and some loved to attend and help out at presentations.
Mm-hmm.
And several of them worked pretty diligently on making quilts as well. And so the one of the members, Nancy Gillette, was the one that Denise and the other couple ladies started over at St. Anne's to do quilting over there as just a social thing and making quilts to contribute to Old Glory Quilters.
Okay.
And that moved along so well that actually in 2017, I think in 2018, and this is where I maybe step in and say this is where I really got more active. We, with Harvey and Lynn's okay, went off and were able to do one presentation in 2017 and one in 2018 at St. Anne's Church for, I think, mostly church members. And so that just that was where I maybe really got
Your
from
feet wet in.
ankle deep to
Mm-hmm.
waist deep into being able to help out with this. And of course, 2018, I retired, and that was just the right time to start becoming more active in any and all presentations that Harvey had planned and presented. So we had opportunity to do presentations at the American Legion, where you saw Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
Freedom Temple in downtown Rock Hill, Gray Cockerel VFW post on, I think, Crawford Road or Ogden Road in South Rock Hill. And along with that, we've had opportunity to do a couple of individuals, which we do in cases where health-wise or otherwise, a veteran isn't able to get out of the house to participate in a group presentation. We're flexible enough to take a Quilt of Valor to a home and award it to a veteran in his home. So Denise and I got more involved in that. And active and progressive as we were, we established contact with some friends at St. Mary's Church and realized that they were veterans. Say, hey, did you ever receive a Quilt of Valor? I said, no. And they said, we got a lot of veterans over at Park Point Village. So we should go over there and present quilts there. And so we were all set to sit down and talk with a self-appointed military coordinator at Park Point Village when the pandemic hit and shut everything
Mm.
down for a couple of years. And we reestablished that contact in 2022. And at first, the gentleman, now he was a retired Air Force colonel with 28 years service, and he was kind of protected. Says, "What is this Quilts of Valor? Are you trying to scam my veterans here or something?" And we sat down. We had a nice long discussion over lunch. We showed him, the website and the literature associated with Quilts of Valor. We brought a couple of quilts along to show him what they looked like. And by the end of lunch, he and his wife were wowed enough to say, "Let's do this." And so again, like similar to what we did at St. Anne's with Harvey and Lynn's okay, we ventured out as a spur of Old Glory Quilters, still under the Old Glory Quilters umbrella, but we took the lead in scheduling presentations at Park Point Village, and the military coordinator, he worked on getting nomination information. See, all veterans who receive a quilt, their nominations are put into the Quilt of Valor database, so they're like officially registered as
Mm-hmm.
veterans and officially receive a quilt.
Okay,
Um,
so So let's talk about that process. Let's talk about the process of them getting nominated. How does that work?
One of two ways. Any a veteran or service member can nominate themselves. A friend or family member can nominate. It's usually somebody that knows the veteran and wants to see him be honored and recognized.
Mm-hmm.
There's two ways, really. There's a Quilt of Valor nomination form, which is hard copy that you can give to somebody to fill out all the information, return the form to us, and we can input it to the database. Also at the website, which is QOVF.org, Quilts of Valor Foundation.org, not com. There's when you go to that site and not having to log in or anything, there's a banner near the top when you look at the full screen that's for nominations and awards. And it's a click on drop down, and you can follow it through answering questions and inputting information just like you would put on the form and get to the end and click submit. And so it can go in automatically that way. People generally, like you mentioned, Darrell Rockwell a little while ago, he's good at just getting veteran information and putting it in himself. And once it's into the system, it rifles to the state coordinator. The state coordinator looks at the address and says, okay, amongst let's say South Carolina, for example, there's 6 groups in South Carolina. This one is Razor's is closest to Old Glory Quilters, so she shoots it there, and it pops up in our bucket
Mm-hmm.
as saying you have a new recipient assigned, and so we can go into the nomination and awards management system, and we can extract that information and get all the specifics about branch, years of service, address, phone number, so that we can contact them when it comes time to set up to do an award. Um,
So when they come for the ceremonies, about how many on average do you guys usually do in a ceremony? How many quilts are
we
usually
we like to limit it
approved?
to about a dozen to 14, 15 maybe at the most. And a smaller group makes it more meaningful for the veterans to, I think, feel like they're more individually recognized and not have a mass production kind of event.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and
Not
it's
like a high school like a big graduation or something
right,
like that,
yeah,
where
exactly. I mean, it's we want the person, the veteran, to be recognized as an individual, not as a number.
yeah,
And we
yeah.
want enough time. It's the veteran special time. So as you saw Sunday, we give every veteran an opportunity to say as much or as little as he would like to, about his service, memorable deployment, just anything, and
Is it mostly men that receive it, or do you
I'm
see
gonna
a few
say, yeah,
women?
probably 80% male. Now we have had females, and that's fantastic. A couple of times we've had a husband and wife attend a ceremony and be awarded a quilt to each get their own quilt, but to be
Mm-hmm.
awarded the same ceremony, and that was kind of an extra special, meaningful.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, with your ceremonies, I noticed you were sharing that you get a special material uh that you get to present along that you make the quilt carry bag out of. Do you want to talk
yeah,
about that?
Yeah, can I back up and just talk about the quilts too first? Because the,
Yeah.
the Quilts of Valor has specific criteria about what goes into a quilt. It needs to be high quality cotton fabric, not blends, not polyesters. Um, the ideal size for a quilt is 60-inch by 80-inch, although they will allow as small as 55 by 65 or as large as 70 by 90. But we, Old Glory Quilters Group, really want to focus on 60 by 80 because when you have a group of several veterans, you want every quilt you hold up to look similar in size and shape and not have, one hold up and it's fantastic. And then, the big burly guy comes up behind him and you're holding up a little 55 by 65. So for our group, even though there's latitude in the criteria from the foundation, we really stress let's keep it to a 60 by 80. And that way there everyone looks pretty close to the same when they're all standing up and getting their quilt. Um,
And you guys really did a great job of you really individualize the quilts too. I did not see any two quilts out of the 12 that looked similar. Even similar. They all
and
looked
yeah.
individual.
And that's sometimes we'll say that, and we'll say that you might see the same fabric in two different quilts, the same print. You might see a similar design with different prints, but you'll never see two come off. I mean, it's just like snowflakes. There are no two that are exactly
Mhm.
100% alike. And that's part of why I say in my little speech, he says, you don't order them from Amazon, you don't buy them from Walmart. They're
No,
just
you can tell they're
individually
not mass
made.
produced, and there's a
Exactly.
cookie cutter pattern for
Mhm.
each one. And that,
Yeah.
to me, that just makes it
Yeah.
even more special.
It is.
Because
And
in today's society, there's so much cookie cutter going
mhm.
on.
Yeah.
And that's just
Yeah.
wonderful to see all the different patterns that I saw the other
Yeah.
day.
Now we're fortunate. I think back on Old Glory Quilters, we were talking about Harvey and Lynn running Old Glory Quilters, um, and how Denise and I got more involved. We got pretty involved when we took the lead to doing the Park Point Village presentations, and in the 3 years after we picked back up after the pandemic, we've awarded 58 quilts to residents of Park Point Village of the roughly 70 veterans that they have there.
Oh, wow.
And we have another presentation planned November 9th there to try to hopefully pick up most of the rest of them, although there'll never be an end because new veterans continue to move in, and they're expanding Park Point Village. At some point, there'll be even more coming in. So that will continue to be an ongoing thing.
Now,
Um,
where is this
Park
is
Point
it
Village is in Rock Hill.
okay.
And if you're familiar with Rock Hill much, if you know where Northwestern High School and Rollinson Middle School are, so Park Point Village is about less than a mile after that as you're heading towards York
Yeah.
on the left. So
I wasn't sure if it was in Rock Hill or Fort Mill or something like
yeah,
that.
it's in Rock Hill. But
But
yeah.
so I'm going to go back and rephrase my question again. I'm going to come back in with the question just so it flows with the cover. Are you ready to talk about the cover yet? The
Yes.
bag? And so we'll just so that you know where I'm going to flow to is we'll talk about the bag and then we'll talk about the certificate and how the
Okay.
patches on the back and all of that. Okay?
Okay. And somewhere along the way, I would like to bring in how Denise and I wound up taking over Old Glory
Oh yeah, yeah,
Quilters.
yeah.
Harvey.
Yep.
Um,
We will
but
finish up with that. Okay?
okay. Um,
Let let me ask the question
go ahead.
and then
I'm jumping too much. Okay.
so I noticed on the back of the chairs of the recipients, they have what looked like part of the flag, but it was just the navy blue and the stars. And then you were talking about a quilt cover. So what was that material for?
So they're the same material and they're two separate things. One, let me start with the material first. The material are Starfields that were manufactured to be part of flags. But in the production process, when they went through quality control, they found some problem with the back material, with stars or whatever, that they couldn't use it for flags. And the company that produces that is Gaffney Embroidery over in Gaffney, South Carolina. And before we got involved, Harvey and Lynn were still involved with the Old Glory Quilters. They found out about this through a field trip and asked what's done with the material that is can't be used as flags. We just throw it away. And he says, "My goodness, you throw this away? We could take it and we could make presentation cases for it." That's the official
Mhm.
name of the bag, is a presentation case.
Okay. Okay.
Um, So typically, let me sidestep for just a second. Typically, presentation cases are not required, but they're recommended by Quilts of Valor
Okay.
as a nice little storage case, or somebody wants to put it on their shelf and not use a quilt, or put it in their cedar chest,
Mm.
or if they want to travel and they want to take it with them, it's nice to fold up and slide into there. And it's like maybe a bit of an oversized pillowcase. In many groups, most groups that do presentation cases will fashion a presentation case that might have some of the materials from the quilt top in it. So it kind of looks like a matching set. Harvey got the idea is let's take this material that can't be used for flags and we'll make presentation cases out of it. And that's how that got started. And so our group has routinely been providing, instead of just a presentation case with coordinated fabrics, we make them with the flag bag. We call it the flag bags.
The flag bags. But you said something in the ceremony of the flawed or the missing stars.
So,
Can you tell me about more about
yeah.
that? What
And
they
so that
represent?
is our own, Harvey's own story about the flags. He thought if you have a flag presentation case out of the flag material and there's a incomplete star or damaged star on it, that would represent a service member who was wounded during a service. And if you went along the row of flag stars and there was a star actually missing, that would signify a service member who never made it home from his duty. So that's like an extra little
Yeah.
special touch of the flag bags to make them a little bit more meaningful.
Yeah, I think
You
that was another tissue moment.
know. Now,
I had to dab
along with
my
the
eyes
flag
again.
bags, along with the flag bags, Lynn had the idea that instead of just having a plain old chair sitting there, it'd be neat to fashion a little slip cover out of that same material that could slide down over the back of the chair. And it's easy when you do that. Then when the veterans are coming in, you can point them to the front of the room. Okay, see the chairs with the flag material draped on the backs. Those are set up and reserved
Those
for
are your
veterans who
seats
are
of honor.
Mhm. Basic. Yes, that's right. We had a
Oh,
good issue at the end Sunday. I don't know if you saw it. It got a little bit chaotic there, and people were coming out. They want to take pictures, and we were trying to pass out their certificates, and people were grabbing the seat backs off, thinking that that was their
they're
presentation
bags.
case.
No, I
No,
did not
no.
see that.
Yeah,
No.
they would have found out they were a little bit too small for a presentation case. They wouldn't have been able to jam their quilts in there, but we
No,
got it all straightened out. So,
I missed that. But
yeah.
so they get their quilt and they get
Yes.
this flag bag. What else do they get during the
So
ceremony?
we also present a certificate that has the veteran's or service member's name and a kind of a quote. And I don't have my paper right with me, but it's basically the Quilts of Valor Foundation thanks you for your service, and we present you with this Quilt of Valor. We don't know the extent of your duty or what you experienced, but we want to thank you with it. And we've customized, the group, customized the standard Quilt of Valor certificate by embossing. That's not really embossed because it's flat. It's just printed with the thing as a picture, but the branch logo.
Mm-hmm.
So the U.S. Marine Corps, Air Force, Navy, Army, each has at the center bottom underneath the tribute has that branch, and then we put a gold seal on each side for Old Glory Quilters and Rock Hill. That's kind of dresses up the
Yes.
generic certificate a little bit more, and we put it into a holder, kind of like one of those cardboard kind of things to
Yeah.
preserve it a little bit.
And then
And we present those. And then we've also been able to engage with Congressman Ralph Norman's office, who's quite a veterans advocate. And so he wanted to participate to the extent of being able to present a certificate of appreciation from his office in
Okay.
thanks for their military service, along with a congressional coin that we were kind of showing too. So every veteran gets their quilt, they get their flag bag, they get their Quilt of Valor certificate, they get a congressional appreciation certificate, they get the congressional coin. And then, as we said, those that served during the period of the Vietnam era also, in addition, get the commemorative lapel pin.
Now,
So,
there is one thing that we haven't talked about. There on the quilt itself, there's something that the quilters attach to the quilt. What is that?
so on the on the back lower left corner, we put a Quilt of Valor label, and the label has a little bit of information on it. It identifies the person who put the top together, who quilted it, who bound it. And then it also has on it the veteran's name and the veteran's date of award. So it truly becomes an individual quilt. He always will have it with his name and date on it. And remembrance, although he may never know the ladies that made
Mm-hmm.
it and worked on it, it's there for him to, know that somebody special took the time to make their quilt.
Yep.
And as it turned
Several
out, we had
individuals.
we had a few of the ladies that were wrapping veterans Sunday. We tried to work it out that they would present quilts that they worked on. So
I
it,
noticed that was a
yeah, it's
nice
not
touch.
not always easy to do because sometimes they'll make a quilt, but they won't be able to attend the presentation. Sometimes we
Mm,
get volunteers to attend the presentation, but we didn't have any of their quilts in inventory. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Uh,
we try to make it work like that to then that way there it becomes as meaningful to the person wrapping the veteran as it is to the veteran.
yeah.
So
It just was a very special presentation. I'm really honored. Thank you for inviting me to come and witness that.
after we did the first go around, I thought about it, I said, it'd be really neat for you to see that. And then when we talk about it, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
It really is. So you've talked about Harvey, but Harvey is no longer part of Quilts of Glory. Can you tell us about the transition of what's
Um,
happened with
yeah,
Harvey is no longer with
well,
us and
right. In the last few years, Harvey had a long-term terminal health issue. It's called pulmonary fibrosis, I think it was called. It's just almost like suffocating. His lungs almost like dry up and get hardened, and he can't breathe. And there is no cure for it. They get medicines to try to extend lifespans, but nothing to actually cure it. And let's see, he turned 81 in January 2024, and Lynn turned 80 later that year. But um, Lynn saw how rough Harvey was getting. Harvey eventually acknowledged that he was going downhill. Lynn asked Denise after one of their monthly meetings if Denise would think about taking over leadership of the group because Lynn saw the writing on the wall. She had been a nurse and she could see Harvey's health failing.
mhm.
So Denise was sort of like, why me? And Lynn basically said, amongst, said, Frank participates in the presentations. He's pretty active. He's worked with you on doing these at Park Point Village. He said, of all of our group members, bless them, they're all great people, but we think that you're the only two that could take this and actually pick up the ball and run with it. And so Denise came home with that information and said, what do you think? And I said, well, what do you think? And back and forth a little bit, but we talked about it a lot. We prayed on it, and at the end of the day, we saw that no one else in the group would be have the capacity to be able to take it over and do what needed to be done, and so we said yes. And so we officially transitioned in September of 2024 after the group kind of shuts down for July and August just for a little summer hiatus. And they shut down, and after we reconvened for the September meeting, Harvey and Lynn officially turned the keys over to us. But during July and August, we had several meetings with Harvey and Lynn on just getting the behind the scenes, other stuff other than what you do for a presentation. And that was, getting to understand and know the nomination and awards management system, how that works, and the Quilt of Valor policies and procedures, and the whole other administrative stuff that group leaders have to be involved with and stuff. And so we got up to speed quick. We took the reins in September, and we went forward. And I guess, it was kind of serendipitous that we did it then, because on into October, November, Harvey just really went downhill, and he passed on December 4th of last
Mm,
year. Made it through Thanksgiving with his family, and I think that was about all he could muster.
yeah.
So once we took it over, we jumped on the bandwagon, and we had several presentations. We awarded 55 quilts before the end of the year of 2024.
Oh, wow.
And so far this year, we settled down a little bit for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the cold winter. January, February, everybody's just kind of hibernating.
Yeah.
And we kind of cranked back up in March. And from March until this past Sunday's presentation, we awarded 83 quilts already this year.
And I
So
know you have several presentations scheduled for the
we
coming
do.
months.
Yes, we do. It's an ongoing thing. We're saying, okay, well, after Sunday, we're going to be down to 46 on our nominations list. Well, guess what? By the end of the weekend, after Sunday, we were back up to 53 because we got seven more nominations in, and I think we got another one from Daryl Rockwell today. So it's a dynamic thing.
Yeah.
And right now, we're fortunate to have about 50 completed quilts in inventory. So
Oh,
you
that's
have to
awesome.
keep a balance between, the nominees that you have and the number of quilts you got available. And so we kind of we stretch out the presentations a little bit just to give us some breathing room and to make sure we have veterans confirmed that can be able to attend a presentation and quilts available to present. So to that end, we have September 14th, we're doing a presentation down at Emmanuel Baptist in Fort Lawn. And October 1st, Wednesday, we're doing a small presentation for five veterans at St. Philip Neri in Fort Mill. I think it's kind of in conjunction with one of their Wednesday prayer groups, actually.
Okay.
October 12th, we're back at American Legion again. And so this is where the timing of the thing. So this past weekend, Friday and Saturday, I was contacting the veterans I want to include in the Fort Lawn, and I've got 100% right now saying it's going to be able to make it. The five in St. Philip Neri, those are kind of a special. We know that they're
Yeah.
going to be there. And so soon, I have a target list of the ones I want to reach out to for October 12th at the American Legion again. But you don't want to contact them too early so that they forget about it and stuff. You kind of the right timing to enough ahead so they can
Yes.
look at their
A
calendar and
little
say, yeah, that's
finessing goes
okay.
on.
Yes, yeah. So we look to have about 12 or 13 or 14 then. And then November 9th, we already have pegged for Park Point Village again. We're working with Daryl Rockwell. We had on May 31st, we did a presentation of veterans in his community, Four Seasons up at Fort Mill. And we did it at Four Seasons Clubhouse. And I think we had 9 or 10 veterans there. And we had a pretty full room there too. I think other veterans saw how neat that was and they jumped on the bandwagon. Well, I want to get nominated.
I
So,
want to.
so Daryl's working on getting nominations for another group so we can do another 10 or 12. Right now, it's a little bit fluid, late October to mid-November-ish.
Yeah.
Um,
With this being said, and you're talking about all these quilts that you're making, do you take donations to help fund getting the material and the supplies for these
we will
quilts?
never ask for donations. We passively put a donation jar on a table in the corner in the back. Um, and we put a sign up that says 100% of donations go to making the quilts for the veterans. We also put a sign up that says if you want to visit QOVF.org, if you want to make a donation online, or if you want to find out more about Quilts of Valor, or if you want to nominate. a veteran or service member. So it's totally passive. It's whatever an individual um, has an idea that they want to give something. It's totally voluntary, never any pressure. We're fortunate to have a pretty good inventory of fabrics that we, for the most part, got from Harvey and Lynn. They stored it at their home. They had a loft over their garage that was actually like a mother-in-law suite, and they had room to be able to store that. We didn't have that at our home, so we rented a climate-controlled storage unit to store our fabric there. We put a table in there with cutting mat on it so that we have an open house periodically where members looking for something will say, we're going to be at the storage unit between 10 and 12 on this day. Let us know if you want something and we'll look for you to come. And we'll roll it out, we'll cut it, and we'll send them on their way. And
There you
you know,
go.
so, but in that regard, Denise and I are also fortunate. We paid for the storage unit out of pocket because our philosophy carries from Harvey's that any donations that come in is for the material, the bat, the
Mhm.
thread, and stuff that goes into making the quilts, not storage, not rentals.
Well,
We have
that's
the good fortune to be able to afford that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you ever wanted to share your story but felt like you just didn't have the time or the skills to make this happen? That's exactly why I offer my done for you storytelling and video services. From start to finish, I handle everything: scripting, recording, editing, and even posting, so you can share your story without the stress. You just bring your story, your voice, and I'll turn it into a polished professional video that captures your message and connects with your audience. It's perfect for personal stories, business messaging, or even preserving your legacy for future generations. No tech headaches, no overwhelm, just your story brought to life. Learn more and get started at wheezyinc.com. Let's create something that lasts.
We like to give the veterans time to say something. Some will say nothing more than thank you. Some really like to open up and talk about the uh, the Navy officer that got the quilt. With the one
Mm-hmm.
that started out says, "I'm speechless," and then he talked about how he went in and is enlisted, and he was saw how where the enlisted men sleep versus where the officers sleep. He said, "I'm going
Yeah,
to officer school," so it's neat to be able to give them a chance to get a little story out like that. I think it's rewarding for him to relate that. I think it's neat for the other veterans and the audience to hear stories. And that's why we want to limit the number of veterans do at one ceremony is again back to if it's too many people and it's too drawn out, people are going to get restless. Their
mm-hmm.
attention's going to go away. So we
Right.
find that we can do about a dozen veterans, give or take an hour to an hour and a half with getting there a little before the ceremony and hanging around a little after the ceremony. So
Well, it was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. So, Frank, thank you so much for coming on Life Mosaic and sharing the stories about Quilts of Valor and letting us know about the history and the people who are honored to get the quilts, to thank the veterans for their service and all of the work that you and Denise do to pour in to make sure that this continues on in the York County system.
it's a rewarding endeavor for us for sure, and we're glad to be able to do it. We're glad we have members to help us do it. It's a have a great team effort for sure. So
That's great.
thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. And everybody, if you want to learn more about Quilts of Valor, if you go to their website, a veteran. This can be a veteran anywhere, but you can go to the website and nominate them, and the nomination will get where it needs to be. But I will have that information in the show notes at lifemosaic.me. And go ahead and share this podcast so your friends and your family can learn more about Quilts of Valor. And until next time, everybody, Bye. Episode of Life Mosaic. If you would like to find the show notes of this episode, just go head on over. If you'd like to find the show notes for today's episode, head on over to Life Mosaic. That's lifemosaic.me. And today's guest information, photos, links to their information, all can be found in the show notes of this episode. Have a great day, everybody. Bye. Hey, thanks for joining us here at Life Mosaic. Guess what? If you want to see the show notes for this broadcast, see the pictures, find the links, and all the information that you might have missed during the podcast, go ahead and head on over to our website at lifemosaic.me. And you know what? If you would follow me on other social media platforms and on YouTube, that would be great too. You can find me, you can find the links to follow me down below, also in the show notes. Hey, you know what? I would love it if you would go ahead and follow me on other social platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, where all the cool kids hang out. So go ahead and look down in the show notes while you're there exploring about our interesting guest, and you can click on and join me on all of these social platforms and hit subscribe, like, follow, whatever it is that you need to do on those platforms. And most of all, please follow me here on Podbean.